Now, many of you watching this will know what I'm going to talk about now, which is the way the United Nations, which I do believe was evolved out of good ideas by good people, has morphed into something that we should be allowed to question. And apparently the new President of Argentina seems to think along the same side as us. I'm going to play a short clip. I'm not very good at this, but I think you should hear the words because it really was profound. You've probably heard it before. It first was aired on social media in October this year. I think he came to power about December last year. This guy is going for it. This guy is looking after Argentina. Listen to the wording about what he says about how the United Nations, in his opinion, has changed over the years.
At some point, and as often happens with most of the bureaucratic structures that we humans create, this organization stopped upholding the principles outlined in its founding declaration and began to mutate. An organization that had been conceived essentially as a shield to protect the realm of men transformed into a multi-tentacled leviathan that seeks to decide not only what each nation state should do, but also how all the citizens of the world should live. This is how we went from an organization that pursued peace to an organization that imposes an ideological agenda on its members regarding a myriad of issues that pertain to human life in society. The model of the United Nations that had been successful, whose origins we can trace back to the ideas of President Wilson, who spoke of a society of peace without victory and was based on the cooperation of nation states, has been abandoned. It has been replaced by a model of supranational governance by international bureaucrats who intend to impose a certain way of life on the citizens of the world. What is being discussed this week here in New York at the Summit for the Future is nothing other than the deepening of that tragic course that this institution has adopted from a model that, in the words of the United Nations Secretary himself, demands the definition of a new social contract on a global scale, doubling down on the commitments of the 2030 Agenda. I want to be clear about the position of the Argentine agenda. The 2030 Agenda, although well-intentioned in its goals, is nothing more than a supranational socialist government program that aims to solve the problems of modernity with solutions that undermine the sovereignty of nation states and violate the right to life, liberty, and property of individuals. It is an agenda that aims to solve poverty, inequality, and discrimination with legislation that only deepens these issues, because the history of the world shows that the only way to guarantee prosperity is by limiting the power of the monarch, ensuring equality before the law, and defending the right to life, liberty, and property of individuals. It has been precisely the adoption of this agenda which responds to privileged interests and the abandonment of the principles outlined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of the United Nations that has distorted the role of this institution and set it on the wrong path. Thus, we have seen how an organization that was born to defend human rights has been one of the main drivers of the systematic violation of freedom, such as the global quarantines during the year 2020, which should be considered a crime against humanity.
Now, it goes on at some length. So, when you think he's this new president of Argentina that's kind of taking the world by storm because of his viewpoint, but his viewpoint makes sense. Correlate that with the win from President Trump. You look at that map of America, it's all red. Ironically, Newsmax have brought a map out. I've put it on my social media pages. It highlights the states and the counties where Kamala Harris was successful. Ironically, they didn't insist on voter ID. Amazeballs. So when you think of that, and then you think Bill Gates actually backed the Harris campaign to the tune of $50 million. His kids, Phoebe and Rory, also backed that campaign financially. We don't know the amounts, that's not being disclosed. I mean, if it has somewhere, stick it on the thread. And his ex-wife also did. I would imagine Bill Gates would have been the biggest donor. What do these people stand to gain from jockeying along one candidate over the other? He's never made any statements politically out in the open. He's never turned around and said he wants this candidate to win. He's kept out of the public affray there. He's not pointed out which side he's on, but financially It's disclosed. The donations from his family members have not been disclosed. Highly irrelevant, really, when you think this man also is one of the biggest donators to the WHO, the World Health Organization, and the WHO has this new pandemic treaty out. You correlate it all together. This is what I do. The President of Argentina, that's wow, he's shocking the world with some of the things he's coming out with, because he's basically conservative. And if you look at the inflation rate that Argentina has suffered over the years, they need to get some conservatism in, because socialism hasn't worked. It never works, because eventually you run out of other people's money, as Margaret Thatcher said. And when you're taxing the ones that are working and giving it to ones that aren't working for good or bad reasons, it's a merry-go-round, and so taxes go up, inflation rises. It's just a snowball effect. So what you've got to look at, and this is why I say it is a good thing, he's had the bottle to stand up at the United Nations in New York and say all this to them. That takes bottle. He's been polite. That's his view. That's how he sees them. It's more from a good thing to a bad thing, to something that just seeks control of individuals' property. That's the other thing. You'll own nothing and be happy. Actually, we won't. And if we're supposed to be happy owning nothing, why don't you own nothing and give it to us? See how you feel. Who gets all the stuff? That's what I want to know. Okay, we all own nothing. My house goes. Who's got it? Where's it gone to? If we're all supposed to be owning nothing. So we're not going to ever be happy about that. It's never going to work. So the thing is, when you look at that, and then you look at Bill Gates and the way he's involved with Gavi, the foothold he's got with that, the foothold he's got in Big Pharma, how much money he made from the rollout across the world. What I never understand is how people can believe that it's okay in a pandemic, an alleged emergency, for drug companies to have made, like Pfizer, $100 billion. Surely, if it took you 20 years to make 40 billion before that, is there no alarm bells going off in someone's head that, hello, that's profiteering out of people being told it's essential when it's not necessarily the case? Because otherwise all the people that didn't join in should all be dead by now. But at the end of the day, here we are. We sit here. We have a government that's pro World Health Organization, that would be willing to sign the pandemic treaty. And what you've got to realise with that is, once they sign it, they are giving away sovereignty. There's no other way to look at it. They are delegating what should happen in their country to someone who's never even probably been to it. That is never going to work, because they're just bureaucrats. You can't vote bureaucrats in. You don't know who they are, you don't know their names, you don't even know where they live, what country they're from. And they're going to have a say in whether or not medicines are mandated, whether or not your business has to close, whether or not you're going to get healthcare because of whatever rules they come up with. And it's openly been proved in government documents that, for instance, the social distancing of, was it 2 metres, 3 metres, whatever it was guesswork. It wasn't because of any particular research. So I'm not going to be too long today, because the light's bloody dreadful. I've got my camera here, my camera light on as well. But I just thought you ought to hear what he had to say. Think that President Trump has won in all three places. Think what a difference that's going to make across the West. They're not going to be happy. They're going to fight it. They're coming up with stuff now already to try and undermine it. You know, this is a game of chess. We just have to hope that the Trump campaign is the better player. They have won legitimately, which is more than we can say for some previous elections. So what you're going to look at, it's all correlating together. Starmer's voters are upset with him. His voters are upset with him, not just people like us. His voters are abandoning ship. We've had enough of it. And he's only been in weeks. And then you've got the Trump victory. And then you've got that guy in Argentina. You know, there's nearly 50 million people live in Argentina. It's no small country. But he's standing up for it. But, you know, these globalists want to win. But unfortunately, I honestly believe that you know, it's premature ejaculation. They thought they'd got us. They thought they'd got us during lockdown. But they'd never anticipated the kickback. All the things we haven't signed up to, especially in Great Britain. We are known to be feisty. We are known to be a nation of actual fighters. Well, you think about it, that's why they want to replace us, because we're too damn belligerent. We've got too educated and we've got a nice carry-on. We've got, second homes, caravans, boats, a nice house. We can afford our holidays. We've got 2 cars. Oh, we'll have to stop all that, won't we? You can't go on like that enjoying yourselves. Who said that were allowed? So I'm in quite an upbeat frame of mind, really, because we've just been given a gift with the Trump victory. No matter what goes on, even, that's a bit that's weird, isn't it? This 3-month gap between November and January where the current president can do anything. I wouldn't even put it past them escalating the war in Ukraine, but anyway, we just have to hope for the best there. But there's a shift. There's a shift because the more people wake up to what's going on, the more people will reject it because it's not going to work. And all that we needed was a few of the apathetic ones to be made uncomfortable enough to start taking notice. Now, when you're making your own voters uncomfortable, and that's what Keir Starmer's doing, that's bad news. Bad news. And we all know how we've been treated with our liberty, with the recent arrests after Southport. We can see it all. I had my 88-year-old mother-in-law staying this weekend. My father-in-law's had to go in a home with dementia. He's got bad. She can't look after him anymore because he's unpredictable. And she's going through a tough time. And she's stopped watching the news. Now, this is a woman who doesn't even have the internet. She hasn't got broadband. She hasn't got anything online. She's just typical, older lady. She watches telly. But I was talking to her, and Dave doesn't like talking about anything too serious with his mother. And I thought, well, I'm going to ask her a few questions because she knows what I do, but she doesn't follow me because she's no internet. And she said what they've done to this, because it's just after Armistice Day, and obviously her husband did his national service. And she said, what they're doing to this country, she said, I'm glad my father and my granddad aren't alive to see it. She said, they're giving it away. They're letting anybody in. They don't even ask for who they are. I can't get back off my holidays without showing my passport. Now, this is just basic common sense, this. You don't need to be some, university graduate to get there's something wrong. And this is why you should never, ever underestimate your opinion on this. Never think that your opinion's got it wrong. This is just practical stuff. And she said, well, it's like with, I usually have my flu jab. I'm not having any more of them others. She said, but they never stopped. She's got a little mobile. It's not an iPhone. And I keep getting these texts. Even if someone like that is noticing that they're being hassled and she can see what Keir Starmer's doing, she just said, as far as I'm concerned, he's a bloody communist. And I've been with David 34 years. I've never heard a swear. So that's ordinary people who aren't taking any notice of people like me. That's someone who's not even taking any notice at news. That's someone who's been on the planet long enough to see that her country, that she's paid her taxes into, bearing in mind her husband's going to sit in an old people's home, a nursing home, that's going to cost her probably 1,500 quid a week. I am not joking, because he doesn't qualify for being cared for. Now, because they bought the house and they have some savings, and that's what's going to happen to them. It's going to disappear in care fees. £1,500 a week. Imagine that. 15 grand gone in 10 weeks. You can soon eat into a house with that, can't you? So you've a country that's prepared to take that off you, but put people up in hotels. Put people in a hotel and give them food who could be anybody. They're not even decent people, some of them. They're criminals. And we have a country that's prepared to spend £8 million a day doing that. Whilst pensioners who have done the right thing, brought the kids up, paid the bills, booked their own holidays, saved a bit, done with it. You've got to remember, if somebody's managed to get to her age and have their own house bought and paid for and a few savings, they've gone without, haven't they? You and I know that. If it's an ordinary working class couple, they've gone without stuff to get to that position. So they're cared for in later life. Sadly, they didn't make any provision for later life, as in, to make sure the money was safer than it is. They didn't. That's it. But that shouldn't be some sort of penalty, should it? But what you've got to take away from that, if I can sit and have this conversation with a woman who's not taking any notice of politics, and she can see the world basically the way I do, then we are on the up.